When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Good morning to you, world. How are we all? How are we all? I always say that. I should think of something better to say, but it kind of feels apt every morning. So I hope you are good. I've got a guest today who is, if you hear a lot of background noise, it's just that she's in an Italian library. She's like Indiana Jones from the Last Crusade, if you remember that film. And she is somebody who really can set up home wherever she is on the globe. And it's a big inspiration to me, anyone who has created their lives to be able to do that. She's a guest that quite brazenly states, I have a superpower. I can teach anyone to make money from anywhere at any time, but I choose to use my superpowers for good and not evil, to teach first that money is truly not what it's all about. Going to dig into that a bit. She helps people design a life of their choosing by developing income streams to bring in the kind of wealth that they need to do this. And since stepping away from the corporate world, along with her trusty laptop, she has inspired many to do just that and kick the restraints and grab hold of their dream lives. However, these are not get-rich-quick schemes. As she says, I teach people to create the resources they need to live the life that they choose, with the understanding that building dreams takes time and commitment. Your dreams may not come true tomorrow, but they will come true. Not only that, as a founder of Galahads, a movement to inspire women to take greater control of their lives, careers and prospects without us men getting involved, she's building a strong network across the globe too. And it's really helping ladies again to create their own reality. So what made her step away from her career with A&T, and when so many people would have considered this a job for life? And why does she feel a need for a society to help women so passionately? And does she really take her laptop with her everywhere? And I mean everywhere. Well, let's find out as we bring onto the show to start joining up dots, the one and only laptop LisaMarie Cabrelli. How are you, LisaMarie?
I'm doing great, David. Thank you so much for having me. I was saying before, I listened to a lot of your podcasts, and I always love your introduction. So I was really looking forward to hearing mine.
Was that about right? Was that about right for you?
That was brilliant. Perfect.
So
Thank you
are in an Italian library at the moment, you know, and the only Italian library, as I was saying in the introduction, that I think I've ever seen was the one in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I don't know if you remember that film, when he found like a hidden tunnel in Venice and he went off on an adventure. Are there any hidden tunnels as far as you can see? Is there anything to smash into the floor and go elsewhere?
Yeah, I'm not sure that this library is that exotic. I'm actually in a very small town in Italy, in the mountains in northern Italy. So it's a very small town. It's my husband's family's house that they've had for generations, and so they still have it. So we spend our summers here. It's a beautiful place.
It is absolutely astonishing. Every single day I have these conversations with people, and I've had conversations with people from an island, their own island, or I've had where you're in an Italian library. And with Wi-Fi and the sort of connection that we've now got, you can really set up life and your job wherever you want. I'll tell you something, Lisa. I haven't told anyone here, but I'm sitting doing this. I've got no socks on, I've got no shirt on, and I'm just wearing a pair of shorts. Now, you couldn't do that in a 9-to-5, could you?
No, you absolutely could not. Yeah, it allows you so much flexibility and freedom. It's incredible. And it's something that anyone can do. It's not just available to an exclusive few. It's something that anyone has the capability of setting up and enabling for themselves. It's fabulous.
Why do you think people don't then? Because I came across this topic when I was reading Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek, and it was a book that inspired me. And I say this quite often. Page 44, I got to that and I thought, my life will never be the same again. And it suddenly struck me, why the hell am I going to an office every single day when I can bring the office to me? And why do I have to work from 9 to 5 when I might want to work at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever? It just seems lunacy to me. So was this always something in your mind, or did you have, like I did, a sort of book or a film or a conversation that really tipped you over and made you become Laptop Lisa?
Well, actually, I think that to answer your first question, the reason why everyone doesn't do it is because there's a lot of fear involved in this kind of lifestyle, right? It's not the very comforting knowledge that every week you're going to get a paycheck and, there's somebody looking after you and somebody telling you exactly what to do. So if people aren't comfortable with choices and aren't comfortable with change, it's quite a stressful lifestyle for those type of people. But this kind of lifestyle doesn't necessarily mean travel, like to your point, right? So you don't have to quit your job and travel the world. It doesn't have to be about travel. Really, what it is about is freedom and choices. So, like you were saying, you don't have to have a 9 to 5 job with somebody telling you what to do. You can have a job where, especially for mothers, right? You can stay home with your children, and you can have the freedom of being at home and not the freedom of traveling the world. It's completely up to you. It's just we have to remember that it's about freedom primarily and choices. And to go back to what the inspiration for me was, I always tell this story about the first date that I had with the man who's now my husband. And we were actually sitting at a bar, and we were having an aperitif. And I pushed a napkin and a pen across the table to him, and I said, if you had $1 million, what would you do? And he made his list and I made my list, and they were very similar, travel, spending time with your family, giving to charity. And as I sat there at the table and I looked at the list, and we were both in horrible, difficult corporate jobs at the time. And I looked at the list, I thought to myself, I don't have to wait until I have $1 million to do these things. I can simply choose to do these things now. And I think that's what it comes down to, is just making choices.
But that's brave, isn't it, to have that realization? Because so many people will go, I'll wait till next year, or I'll wait till I get that promotion, or I'll wait until I've got this or that or whatever. So were you always ballsy, or was that just an epiphany that suddenly hit you?
I love that word ballsy, because that's exactly the word that my husband always used to describe me, as a ballsy chick. But yeah, I think I probably always was comfortable with change. My parents moved us from England to the States when I was 12. And we moved from a teeny tiny little country town in England with about 2,000 people to New Jersey, which is a huge upheaval and a big change. And I think it kind of taught me that, change isn't as scary as everyone makes it out to be. And as long as you plan it correctly and prepare for it correctly, change is what makes a life.
Was New Jersey, obviously, going from, where were you in England? Where was this little town?
I was in Thornbury, which is not such a little town anymore. It's just outside of Bristol. But when I lived there in the 70s, it was, early 80s, it was a little market town in the West Country.
So you haven't got a Bristol accent, because for all our listeners, if you don't know the Bristol accent, think of a kind of cross between a farmer and a pirate, and you're getting close.
Yeah, that's great. No, I don't have a Bristol accent because I actually was born in London and my parents are Cockneys. So I have sort of an amalgamated accent of London, Bristol, New Jersey, Scottish, which is my husband. So I just have no accent at all.
Do people kind of try to guess where you come from? Do they sort of think you're Australian or something in different countries?
Yeah, in the States, I always get Australian. I think it's because it's a mix of English and American, which sounds very Australian.
Because I was in Atlanta once, and this woman came up to me, and I've told this story before, and it still strikes me as slightly weird. And she was a panhandler, and she came up to me, she said, if I can tell you where you come from, give me $5. And I went, go on then, it's going to be quite obvious. I come from the United Kingdom. And she went, you come from Sweden. And I thought, why would you choose Sweden out of all the places? You choose, a big country. But no, she's still got her $5. But yeah, I've often thought, do they think I sound Swedish? Do I sound Swedish?
No, I don't think so. No. I actually had I went to school for acting, actually. That was my undergraduate degree. And I had a voice teacher who was able to name exactly where your accent was from. And she was incredible, because she said to me, you were born in London, but you spent time in the West Country, and you also have central New Jersey. like that immediately. So there is a way to do it, but
she's been on LinkedIn, you know.
probably, yeah. Although I wasn't on LinkedIn at the time, so
I don't believe anything when that happens. It's like when you get these clairvoyants and they tell you that your nan worked in a sewing machine factory in Bristol. Yeah, I never believe it. I'm sorry if people out there do believe these things, but I always think, hang on, there must be an angle. How did she do that?
Yeah.
Are you a kind of open-minded person to those kind of things, or are you, like me, pretty closed off in certain ways?
I would say I'm pretty open-minded because I like to believe that there's lots and lots of things in this world that we don't understand. If I didn't believe that, I don't think that I would be so eager to make choices and make changes. So I think, yeah, I'm pretty open-minded. I mean, I can get a little bit woo-woo, probably.
That's a brilliant answer, and I think that cuts through to the core of you, LisaMarie, why you are willing to take all these chances. Is it... Do people need to be open-minded? Because I understand now from doing this job that when people start becoming successful or finding their path or going for something in their life, it's generally when they've become more aware and they start looking around at what other people are doing. And is that what, to you, open-minded is about, or is it just a kind of spirituality? It's just a way that you actually function as a person?
I think open-mindedness would be about internal and external awareness, and that's a huge part of what I teach to my clients. I mean, you said in the introduction that piece about how I teach that money is truly not what it's all about. And the first thing that I always do with my clients is talk to them about their life, because I'm a certified life coach as well. So we talk first and foremost about what they know about themselves and what they know about the world, which helps them get grounded in a place where they can make those choices. I call it becoming a choice agent. It's really like one of the most important steps in following the freedom formula, which is what I teach. Is if you don't have that internal awareness and that external awareness, you're not in the place where you can be comfortable making big choices. So yeah, I think it's very, very important.
So for our listeners out there, avidly focusing in on every word you say and all the other episodes, how do they make these choices? Is there a kind of first thing that they've got to focus in on to be able to start setting their life up like you have or all the other guests?
I think that the first step in making choices is becoming aware that there are choices available to you and that the choices are 100% in your hands. I think that what happens to a lot of people is they follow the path that has been laid out for them. And you were talking to me about it earlier, actually, David. You were saying there's a group of people who do what they think they're supposed to do, right? They go to university, they get a job, they get married, they buy a house, they buy a car, because these are the things that we've been taught to want. And I think because we're so focused on following that path of what we define as success, we forget that we can choose to do things differently. So one of the first things I do with my clients is I have them do what I call a choice audit. And basically, it's quite difficult to do because it requires you to put a huge amount of attention on yourself for a large period of time. You carry a little notebook around with you, and throughout the day, you mark down where you could have made a choice. So it's from little choices as simple as, I can get up at 7 and go to the gym, or I can get up at 8 and sleep in because I need the rest, which are both valid choices, to huge choices as in, I have this opportunity to move for my job, and I never noticed that this was a choice or an opportunity before. But now that I'm actually paying attention and I'm auditing the availability of choices, I'm becoming aware how different my life could be. Because I always say, choices are the things that create change, and it's change that creates opportunity. You can't have opportunity without change. So you are 100% responsible for creating the opportunities that will lead to an extraordinary life, because you're the only one who can make the choices that will lead to change, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And I think that is brilliant. I really do. Because with our lives, we're so busy, aren't we? We're so whizzing here, whizzing there, dealing with emails, picking up the phone, all those kind of things. And what you're actually getting them to do is consciously reflect. And without that, everything's a blur, and you can't actually see those choices. And I'm sure that the more successful people in the world have structured their life that give them time to be able to reflect and look and plan where they're going, where the majority of us, I'm still not quite there. I'm much better than I was, but I'm still in the place that everything sort of happens and I kind of juggle this, juggle that, and I don't spend an awful lot of time reflecting until I have these conversations. And when people are talking like yourself, incredibly passionately, then I do sit there listening to you thinking, yeah, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. So I think that's brilliant. I really do. And do people sort of come back like 3 days later and say, oh, I didn't have time? Or do they say, oh, yes, I've done it every sort of minute of the day?
You know, I always say I know immediately who my customers are. And I know immediately who my customers are because my customers are the ones that come back and say, I've done this and this has changed me. And the people who aren't my customers are the people who come back and say, oh, I didn't have time. This wasn't, this didn't happen. And the reason they're not my customers is because I know that they will never do the things that are required for you to do to get to that extraordinary life. And sometimes it's simply laziness, but most of the time it's that they cannot get beyond the fear. And I can work with people and try to help them step past the fear. But for the most part, if you're not willing to do your homework, you're not my customer. And I'm quite tough. I call it tough love. In that if you don't do your homework, I can't move you to the next step. You can't come to my, sometimes I'll have a workshop and I'll say to people, I know you've paid for 8 sessions, but if you don't do the homework in the 5th session, you can't come to number 6 because you're not going to get the value that you've paid for, and I'll happily refund your money.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that you would have kept their money as well. I thought.
Oh, no. If you don't get the value, you don't have to pay. That's my mantra.
And is there a lot of people, because that's a shame, isn't it? That's a shame that they will have made a certain amount of effort, they've bought into the course, and then they just kind of drift away. Does that happen a lot? Because I imagine it does, because we all have these passions where we buy gym memberships and then after 3 times we never go, or we plan to sort of wash the car every weekend and after 2 we don't do it. Does that happen a lot?
Well, I would like to think that I'm pretty good at motivating people. So I think it probably doesn't happen as often as it could happen. But yeah, it certainly happens. I would say probably about 10% of the people that I work with are people who I will very gently say, you're not my customer, but I'm sure that there's somebody out there who can help you. So I'd rather you find the person who is better for you in the position that you are in your life right now than continue to work with me when you're not going to get the value out of it that I believe you should get if you work with me.
But it's not laziness, is it? It's something else. I can't quite grasp what
it's
makes
fear.
People do that. You think it's fear?
It's fear. Absolutely. It's fear of change. And, as part of being a choice agent, you have to also get beyond the fear of change. So there are strategies that you can use to help yourself get past that fear of change. But again, if you're not willing to do the work, if you're afraid of if you're afraid of being good at change, sometimes where you are in life is just so comfortable that it's easier to stay where you are.
We call that the C word, and we call comfort is the killer of all dreams, and it's our biggest swear
Absolutely.
word on this show. Comfort,
Yep.
Because so many people, and I was in it for years and years and years, so I'm not sort of making out like I'm some kind of missionary. I'm pretty much saying, look, I know exactly what you were doing. I was doing it for 25 years, and I look back on it, and I don't go, what a wasted 25 years, because I know I couldn't be doing this without that, and it was my dots leading up to this, so it was like my practice. But I do look at it and think, God, if I hadn't have had that big jolt in my life when I had a boss that turned up who was a complete lunatic and I couldn't work with her anymore, I would still be in comfort zone, and I would still be floating along until the Christmas bonus, and then maybe a promotion, and just sort of going along, because there was nothing too bad and nothing too good to shake me up. And it's when I've been speaking to them, and they go, yes. And we call it our big dot, LisaMarie. It's the bit where people have gone, yes, I can look back, and that was the moment I made the move. And 9 times out of 10, it's when it was bad. It was a bad time in their life. And they look back on it and they go, I never want to go back through that again, but God, I'm glad I did, because I am where I am now. Did you have a big dot in your life that you can reflect on and say, yeah, that was the making of me?
Yeah, I did. I had a very big dot. I just want to quickly address your comfort statement, and I'll tell you about my big dot, because you said the words that, it's not something to feel badly about. And I want to say that another word we could use that sort of relates to comfort is the idea of resistance, right? You resist the combination of the lure of comfort and the pressure of resistance is very, very difficult to battle. So I get lured by comfort all the time. So it's not like you all of a sudden overcome this desire for comfort and then you never have to deal with it again. I mean, I have established my companies, especially my e-commerce company, into that whole 4-hour work week model. I don't have to do this, right? I don't have to do what I'm doing now. I could comfortably work 4 hours a week and, do my traveling and spend time with my family. But I know that I won't be fulfilled or satisfied unless I'm continually stretching beyond my comfort zone. And to get to my big dot, in early 2000s, I was working corporate. I was working in software development, and I had a very young baby, a relatively unhappy, unsatisfying marriage at that point. But I had everything that I had set my mind to. I had the house, the car, the big job, I worked crazy hours. My daughter spent most of her time in daycare, and I actually traveled a lot for business, and I was getting up in the middle of the night to test software with India. And I was on my way to work, and it was early in the morning. It was about 7 o'clock, and it was dark, and it was icy. And on the way to work, there was a shortcut that I could take that would cut about 10 minutes off of my travel. And I was late for a meeting. So I decided to take the shortcut, even though I knew it would probably not be terribly safe. It was a very windy road next to a canal, and it got really, really icy. So I turned onto the road, and all of the cars behind me were also in a horrible rush to get to work, because that's where everyone was headed. And they were going a lot more faster than I was comfortable with. But I, of course, sped up because, I was feeling the pressure from those people behind me. And I hit a patch of black ice, and the car just completely lifted off of the ground and started skating across the ice, and the steering wheel stopped working. I had no control. It hit the embankment on the right of the street, did a complete turn, and headed straight for the canal. And I bounced off of a tree that dented in the whole entire passenger side of my car. And then as I was going in, I remembered an Oprah episode about being able to get out of a submerged vehicle. And I remembered that I had electronic windows, so I pushed the electronic button as I was soaring through the air. I took a complete nosedive into the canal, went all the way to the bottom of the 20-foot canal, hit the bottom really hard, bounced up to the surface, and I managed, as it started sinking very rapidly, I managed to climb out of the about 18-inch hole I had made with my windows, because I couldn't open the doors. The right side was bashed in, and the left side had water pressure on it, so it wouldn't open. So I crawled out of the window, and as it was tipping over, climbed onto the tail lights of my car and leapt to the bank of the canal. And it was then when I was standing on the side of the canal road thinking, my daughter could have been in that back seat. My daughter could have been in that back seat because I'm rushing and running all the time. And if she were in that back seat, I wouldn't have been able to get her out. And that was my big dot that said to me, I've achieved all my goals, but I'm not where I need to be. And this is not where I want to be, standing on the side of the road, shivering, watching my car sink into a canal, and I must make changes. And it took me a while. I mean, that was probably about 14 years ago. So I've been working on it ever since that big dot.
Fascinating story, that. It's fascinating for so many elements, but Oprah Winfrey basically saved your life.
She did. She saved my life. Yep.
Who can say that? Who can say that? Have you ever managed to get in contact with her and say, because of your episode, because that would be interesting to see what she responds.
I have, actually. The very last year that she was on, they put a call out for people who had had their lives affected by an Oprah Winfrey episode. And I spoke to the producers quite a bit, but it didn't end up, they only had a few episodes left of the show at that point. So it didn't end up getting on. But yeah, I did tell, they were thrilled with the story. They thought it was fabulous.
I think it's an amazing story. And what's also amazing is the fact that you were calm enough to think, you would think you'd just be panicking, thrashing out, but you were calm enough to actually remember that and actually take action while you were sort of going into the canal.
I know, I don't know how I was calm. I'm not usually that calm under those kinds of circumstances, but yeah, I was pretty calm. So
astonishing. And the thing that struck me as well was the fact that you said, that was 14 years ago. And now you're on the show now and we're talking about your success. But it really comes back to what I was saying right at the beginning in your introduction. Your dreams may not come true tomorrow, but they will come true. Building dreams takes time and commitment. And it does, doesn't it? But so many people look at the overnight success scenario and it's never there. You just don't see the 10 years of struggle or whatever before the person sort of actually gets to the point that we all notice them. And that's such a shame that people benchmark themselves on a fantasy and not the reality.
Yeah, I mean, it took me 5 years from that big dot to actually quit my job. So, I was working on it during those 5 years, but it took 5 years to be able to be in the position where I could quit my job. So it's not easy. It's hard work. And that's obviously, you said that that is something that I say in my introduction, right? It's hard work. There is no get rich quick. It takes time, it takes commitment.
It took me 5 years as well. It took me 5 years of building up affiliate sites and playing online and all those kind of things until I could have just enough money to pay my bills. So when I made the leap of faith and quit my job, I was poor. I'm still poor. I'll be honest, where I was, I would have been much more comfortable actually being in my career, earning 3 times as much as I'm earning now. But I wouldn't be as happy. I wouldn't have the time freedom. I wouldn't have the control. But I do look back on it and I think, yeah, people think it was a quick leap, but it wasn't. It was night after night after night, every lunchtime, working on things, just so that it gave me a platform to be able to step away. Now, I know some people will just leap. Now, I was never brave enough to do that. I would have held back to the last minute just so that I know that my family aren't going to suffer. But people have been telling me in the interviews that they just leapt and pretty much worked it out as they fell. And as they fell, they were building the parachute. And when they landed, they were in a better position than they were when they leapt. Would you have been brave enough to do that?
I don't think so, because I had a child and so I had a commitment. So I think that people have different personalities. I always say I am a conservative risk taker. So I really do like change and I like risk, but I like to know that my chances are pretty good of at least landing somewhere semi-comfortable. I have been through times where I've really, really struggled. And I've been through times where I'm really comfortable, and it goes up and down depending on the kinds of choices that you've made. But I would never endanger. It's to your point, right, David? You had a family. You'd never endanger your family and put them in a position of struggling because of your choices.
No, but if I was a single man, I kind of wonder. Well, I actually wonder whether I would have as well. I think if I was a single man, I think I would have remained trapped in that comfort zone for a lot longer because, you just have more money, you can do what you want, you can have free holidays, weekends away, and you can almost design your life around the hassles of being at work and doing the things that you don't like. You can almost balance it up that, yeah, okay, I've got a good life because I'm doing all this, even though I'm doing that. But now I see it that you can have everything if you're willing to put your mind to it.
Absolutely. And to your point that you said earlier, David, it's not about money, right? It's really not about money. And most people think, oh, I'll start a business so I can get rich. And when I'm rich, all my problems will go away and I'll be happy. And that's not what happens. Life is not about the achievement of the collection of things, right? Life is about really understanding your ultimate whys, which is another thing that I teach to my clients, and the pursuit of those ultimate whys is what gives you the joy and the happiness in life. And that's what you were doing during your 5 years, right? And all of a sudden you're an overnight success and you've got 15,000 listeners a day. But hey, you know that it was 5 years of getting there, but it was a good 5 years, because even though you weren't in the monetary position that you used to be, you were doing something that fulfilled your ultimate whys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is what it's about.
It is. That's totally what it's about. I'm going to play a little speech now from a chap called Jim Carrey, and I've started throwing this into the show because literally all my guests will get to a point and I go, I know what you're saying because I've got this little recording. Have a listen to this and see what you think of this. This is Jim Carrey.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
I love that more every time I hear it.
It's fabulous. Fabulous.
Is that absolutely true to everyone? That we should go for what we love doing before anything else? Or is that a sort of naive way of thinking, even though I love it?
Well, 2 points. First of all, when he said in the speech, he didn't become a comedian because he didn't believe that was possible. That, I think, is because he truly didn't understand his ultimate whys. And I think that happens to so many people, that we dream about only those things that we believe are possible, and that we have to move beyond our belief to find our real dreams. Because some of us don't even figure out what our whys are, because we're so limited by our belief of what's possible. And to your second question about whether everybody should just do what they love, no, I don't believe that's true. And I think I'm quite controversial in this, David, in that I tell people that the advice of do what you love and the money will follow is complete crap. Because money is not associated with everything, right? If you love playing, like my husband, if you love playing football, soccer, but you're not good enough to be a professional player, there's no point in saying do what you love and the money will follow, because it's just not going to happen. What I say is learn to love what you do so that you can eventually find the time and the money and the freedom to do what you love.
Yeah, no, I take your point, but I do think that if I was going to be a professional football player, it's never going to happen. I can kick a ball around with the best of them, but it's never going to happen. You've got to have a certain amount of passion and talent, don't you? There's a chap called Greg Reed, who is part of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and Napoleon Hill wrote this book, Think and Grow Rich, many, many years ago, when he went round and he spoke to all the successful Uber millionaires, Henry Fords and the Carnegies and all that kind of stuff, and he came up with this blueprint of success. Well, Greg Reed has gone round and done it again, and he's spoken to people like Marty Cooper, the man who invented the mobile phone and those kind of things. I think he's done Richard Branson and stuff, and he's come up with this secret to success, and it's A plus A. I've got to get this in my head because I'm thinking off the top of my feet. It's action and association times passion and talent plus faith. So he says, first of all, we've got to take action, and then you've got to surround yourself with people or find people that are doing it so that you can build up a network and you can find the quick route or the right route to be able to do these things. But without passion and talent, you're not going to get anywhere. So you see these people on X Factor and American Idol, that they get up on stage and they go, what's your dream? Oh, I want to be the next Mariah Carey. And they open their mouth and you think, oh my God. They just haven't got the talent. And so all the passion in the world, even though the mum's standing there going, Simon, you've ruined their life. She will be a number one. It's never, ever going to happen. So you do need the passion and the talent. But then that last bit, the faith, that is where the words of Steve Jobs that we're going to play later comes into it. And that's the bit that when it's hard and you think you can't go one more step, you've got to keep on going, chipping away, changing direction and moving on. Then I think what Jim Carrey is saying is true. Find your passion and go for something that you really believe in, and the money will come.
Yeah, I think that is true, but I think there are ways to, again, back to that whole concept of calculated risk, right? There are ways that you said chopping and changing, and I think that's the key. You can't doggedly stick to a business idea or a career choice based on faith if you aren't willing to chop and change and try different things. Because there's no point in saying, well, I have faith that this is going to succeed, and continue doing the wrong things, because the wrong things aren't going to get you there. So I think there's a lot more to that formula in terms of strategy, right? And being willing to be flexible and again, back again to choices, be willing to make different choices. So maybe, you want to do something, maybe you have this business idea and you think that it's the best business idea and you have faith that it's going to succeed, and you keep doing it and you keep doing it and nothing is happening. Maybe it's a variation of that business idea, or maybe it's, taking what you love and applying it to something that you never thought you could apply it to. Because I think just doggedly following something because you have the faith that you will succeed is like those people who go on the X Factor and think they're going to be the next Mariah Carey, right?
Yeah, I agree with you totally on that. You do have to change. This show now is going beyond anything I could possibly hope. The guests that I've got lined up are just... I couldn't even comprehend how... And actually, funnily enough, I look back on it and I see him lined up and I think, how the hell did they connect to me? I can't even remember how I've managed to connect with these people now. But I have got like the first astronaut in space and the first this and the first that and all these amazing people. But my idea of the show at the beginning isn't what it is now. It's changed, it's morphed, it's developed its own spirit, its own character, but it's better because of it, and it's better because I've allowed it to kind of find its natural place more than the idea that I had right at the very beginning, which was kind of like other shows. And it made me realise after about 30 episodes, I was doing a show and I suddenly realised I was having a conversation, and it wasn't something that was prescribed, it was something that was naturally flowing. And I could feel the strength of that just because I let it develop. So you do need to develop, and you do need to change your plans, and you do need to backtrack, but you do need to keep on going, don't you?
You do. You do have to have faith that you will eventually find your extraordinary life. That's what you have to have faith. You have to have faith that your choices are leading to places. And when you talk about joining up the dots, David, and I know you play the speech during the conversation, I look at the dots as marking choices, right? So if I look back at my life and I look at all the dots, because I have a very diverse background of doing all different things, I think the dots mark choices, and the reason they all join up is because the choices are what sends you on a different path, and the choices are what creates the whole picture.
Do you know, I think you're in the noisiest library I've ever heard in my life.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault, but do Italians operate differently in libraries than everyone else?
It's also the tourist center, so you're hearing some tourists or maybe some Italians come in for tourist advice.
It makes it live, it makes it vibrant. I was just thinking, the hushed whispers that I would do in a library, it doesn't really exist.
No, you'll probably hear the church bells going crazy in a little while as well. They tend to do that while I'm on the phone. That's
what we like about it. So let's play those words that we were just talking about, the Steve Jobs speech. This is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
Are they nice words to listen to, or are they true to you?
I think they're very true. And that's probably where I get a little bit woo-woo, right, David? I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. And even the really bad things that happen open up a whole bunch of choices, and it's choices that create change, and change creates opportunity. So Steve Jobs is talking from personal experience, right? He got fired from his own company, right? And he thought his life was over, but it wasn't. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. So yeah, I believe that you can't look forward. You have to trust that every time you make a choice, you're going to be creating change. And every time you create change, you open up more opportunities. It's exponential.
The interesting thing with the Steve Jobs thing was, and this isn't a Steve Jobs love up, you can take the man for what he is, a brilliant businessman, but he had his flaws, as we all know. But what I loved about that was when he was sacked from his own job, and that must be really hard to take. That you're sort
I can't imagine.
Oh, that must be the darkest point. He didn't just sort of bounce back because he's Steve Jobs instantly. He was in despair, and people would go up to his house and just find him almost sitting on the floor with no furniture, thinking his life was ended, really. But then he turned it round, and he created Pixar and sort of went on to even more success before coming back to Apple and bringing it round full circle, joining up his dots. And it's interesting, that part when he was in his total despair. I would love to get him on the show. Afraid it's not going to happen, but if he did, I would say to him, was that your big dot as well? When you were sacked, do you look back and think that was really where I changed direction and become the powerhouse that everybody remembers? It'd be fascinating to know.
I bet that was. I bet it was, because otherwise he was on a pretty well-established, understood pathway. It was that he, had founded this company, and now he was the president, and he was just going to live out the rest of his life and, found a charity eventually. But it was probably that said, hey, you know what? Things change, and I have to take advantage of changes to create opportunity, which is exactly what he did. He's a fascinating man, I think.
He is. He's fascinating because he's a character that's light and dark, isn't he? There's so many people that love him and what he stood for, and there's so many people that think he's the worst person that's ever walked on this earth. And it is that fascinating contrast between the two. And I'm totally neutral on him. I don't know that much, but I do remember being given that speech at work, and a chap said to me, "Go on, just read this. I've just found this. Have a look at this." And I read it, and it struck me with such power. The first part, the second part, and of course the bit that I play on the show, the middle bit. It just seemed to me to be words of our ages, really.
I agree.
Well, what is it about the Galahads? Let's change direction, because we've been talking about you setting up your life all over the place. And for many people, that would be the dream life. Sitting in an Italian library or laying on a beach with your laptop, boom, job done. But you've taken it to the next level, and you've created the Galahads, a movement to inspire women to take greater control of their lives. And I've spoken to a few ladies on the show who are doing similar things, and there seems to be a big need for this. When did that occur to you? Was it something that you was aware of in corporate land and you then developed later on, or was it something that once again just came out of the blue and made you create this thing?
It's definitely from my corporate background, I think, David. I mean, if you have spent any time in corporate America, you will understand that it truly is a man's world. And I saw so many women believe that there were so few positions for women at the top. Actually, not believe, know it, because it's actually true. There are so few places for women at the top that instead of banding together to support each other and applaud each other's successes, they turn on each other, and that's not just a corporate issue, I think. And again, this is probably getting into a little bit of a controversial space, but I think it's an entrepreneurial issue as well. I mean, women sometimes, they're just not very nice to each other. And they don't network and support each other in the same way that men do. Which is why you don't really have, a female Masons or, which is why men are able to get ahead, because they know how to network and they know how to use these connections. So the Galahads really came from this desire to have the kind of group that I wanted to be in, which was when I first started out, I needed help. I needed women to talk to who had done it before. I needed women to talk to that were willing to put their hand down as I was climbing up the cliff and haul me up. And I couldn't find them. The kinds of networking organizations that I was joining, for the most part, everyone was kind of out for themselves, and there weren't really any mentor type women available. So I decided that it would be important to have a group of women that were kick-ass, right? And that's the line of the Galahads. It's a secret society for kick-ass women. It's women who want to not only succeed in life and business, but also who are willing to conduct themselves by the rules of what I call the code of chivalry, which is being generous, defending other women, learning as much as you possibly can. But generosity is really the core concept, right? So the Galahads is an organization, and actually right now it's closed to new members because we're trialing some new features, and we're keeping it very small. It's an organization where you have to apply to get in, and you have to be at a certain level. You don't have to have a business, but you have to be a certain kind of woman, and you have to agree to abide by the tenets of the Code of Chivalry. And it's a gamified platform. So the more you improve yourself, improve your business, and the more successes you gain while conducting yourself within the tenets of the Code of Chivalry, the more points, the higher ranked that you get. It's all based on the whole Camelot concept, right, of knighthood. And I've gotten a lot of grief for that too, of taking a masculine a paradigm and turning and only using a masculine paradigm for a women's group, but I call it hijacking. Why couldn't there have been female knights? Well, the only reason there couldn't have is because society wouldn't allow that at that particular time. But I picture the Galahads as these strong women willing to go out there and risk their lives for the other members of the Round Table.
So who gives you grief? No, it's brilliant. But who gives you grief for choosing the name Galahads? Is it women or is it men?
Women, yeah. Usually older women, older successful women. The young women get it right away, but the older successful women, like my circle, kind of say, well, you should have made it, it should have been Joan of Arc or, some female, something that had the female qualities of strength. But I say we're hijacking the fairy tale. We don't need a knight to ride in on a white horse, right? We can be that knight. So
that's strange, though, isn't it? That successful women are basically trying to pigeonhole themselves, where you're trying to break it down and make it, change identity for us, because a lot of that identity is the thing that holds women and men back, isn't it? It's what life expects us to be like. And so you're trying to change this, and people are going, you should have done it that way, you should have done it that way. I would find that very difficult to deal with, and I'd probably say a couple of nasty things.
But you know what the point is, and this is something I say to my clients as well, not everyone is your customer. So, and that's fine. If you're not my customer, please go ahead and find the person who is right for you. I don't mind if I can't serve you, because I know that there is a very specific group that I can serve. And, if I can't make you happy, if you've already decided that you don't agree with some core things that I'm doing, or things like you're not going to do your homework, right? Then you're not my customer, and that's okay. I hold you no ill will. You have your beliefs and your opinions, and they're fine. Like a lot of people told me that I had to change the byline. I couldn't say kick-ass, in an organization because it was a swear word and it would put people off. Well, if it puts you off, then you're not my customer, and that's okay. There's plenty of other organizations that you can join where you would feel more part of that specific tribe, right?
I think that the phrase is, and a manager said this to me many, many years ago, that anyone does something new, they're going to attract attacks. And he said, pioneers always attract arrows. And I think that's absolutely true, isn't it? And that's what's happened with yourself. You're doing something new, and there's going to be half the band going, we could have done this. Why didn't we do this? And the other half going, it's not going to work anyway, And it is that peer group that we surround ourselves, which is so important to make sure that we have got champions, we have got supporters, because ultimately, and I'm finding it on this show, and it kind of took me by surprise, because everything that I do on this show is from the heart. I absolutely want to inspire the world to create, their dream life. And by these conversations and by my support and everything I'm trying to build up a network that will be there for good. And I've had emails from people that have been, quite horrible, really. And I kind of think, why are you sending those to me? But,
what did I do? Yeah.
But people have said to me, the more you become successful, the more you're going to get those. And it's the way life is.
Yeah, and you just have to put them aside and not let them get to you. And honestly, that's one of my biggest struggles. I really have a problem when people, not for the Galahads, because I'm really confident that I'm doing the right thing in the right space. But when people make them personal attacks, and they will. I mean, even on things like simple like blog posts, somebody will come back with something horribly personal. I have trouble switching that off, but it's definitely a skill that you must have if you want to continue to put new things out into the world and to be brave. You have to also be able to just say, you know what, you are not my customer. You are not. That's my mantra, right? You are not my customer. You are not my customer. There's plenty of people I can help. I'm sorry that I can't help you. Right.
I think it's a good one, and toughen up. That's what we need to do as well, because you're going to get blows. Just before I put you on the sermon of the mic and we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with the young LisaMarie, where would you like to leave your mark on this world when you depart? Would it be the Galahads? Would it be the vibe that you've created? Would it be that you've changed people's lives? Where would your mark want to be?
Well, Laptop Life Lisa is my coaching company, and that is where I feel like I make the most impact, because truly I've seen people's lives change. My very first client for Laptop Life Lisa was an art teacher making about, $38,000 a year or something like that. And she had always wanted to have her own company, and she'd always wanted to have her own company that was location independent, meaning she could work from anywhere. And within 18 months, she was making $12,000 in revenue a month through our working together. And even if she were the only one I had helped with Laptop Life Lisa, I would be thrilled. It's like I said to you earlier, I don't have to do Laptop Life Lisa. I could give in to the lure of comfort. But I would like my mark to be that I just helped, 20 people. 10, it doesn't matter. If I helped someone change their life through discovering what they want, becoming a choice agent, starting a free-range business and finding freedom, that's the mark that I would like to leave. I'm happy and comfortable with that.
Well, so you should be. I think that's what life is all about. Just a last question before I sort of put you on the mic. Would you say that you are a designer or a dream maker? Would you say that you help people design their lives or find their dreams?
Gosh, that's a tough one. Is that a frequent question?
No, I've just made it up. It just occurred to me.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That's the way I roll on here, Lisa. It's how my brain works.
You know how to roll. I would say that I help people do both. I help people discover discover their dreams and then design the life that will fulfill those dreams.
One or the
Right?
other. Go one or the other.
Oh gosh. I would say designer.
Designer.
I would say designer.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the answer I was looking for. Right. Okay. This is the very end bit of the show. I really don't want this to be the end of the show, but I'm sure there's a load of people coming in there going, oh, they're recording a show here in the library. We better sort of creep around. But this is the sermon on the mic, and this is when I send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back in time and walk into a room and meet the younger LisaMarie, what would you say to them? And would you talk to the one in New Jersey, or the one down in Bristol, or the one maybe a few weeks ago? It's up to you, but I'm going to play the music and you're up. This is the sermon on the mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the sermon on the mic, the sermon on the mic.
So I'm speaking to LisaMarie, who is about 19 or 20 in university. And I'm going to say, LisaMarie, don't rush so much. Don't be so eager to make everything the way it's supposed to be. Be comfortable with insecurity. Sitting in a space of insecurity is where you find your dreams, and you need to spend time figuring out what you want before you rush forward so quickly. And be more confident and believe in yourself. Know that every single one of us has truly unique traits and truly unique talents. And it's those unique traits and talents that count. And you don't have to be just like everyone else in order to succeed. So be more confident and start making choices earlier, but make lots of choices. Don't make one choice and believe that that's the only choice that you have. Make lots of different choices and try out lots of different changes before you settle on the one that you think is the right one. So going back to the message of be patient, don't rush. That's what I would say. That's what I would say to LisaMarie.
Well, I hope she's listening. I really do. LisaMarie, it's been wonderful having you on the show, but how can people connect with you?
They can connect several ways. If they want to learn about all of my businesses, they can just go to my regular website, LisaMarieCabrelli.com. If they are interested in the freedom formula and how I teach people to start businesses that help them find their extraordinary life, they can visit www.laptoplifelisa.com. And if they want to connect with me on Facebook, it's also facebook.com/laptoplifelisa. And also I can be reached through Twitter as well at @laptoplifelisa. And happily, I will receive emails at lisa@laptoplifelisa.com.
Just not nasty ones, eh?
If you want to send me a nasty one, that's fine, but I will follow my own advice and I will delete it before I read it. So.
You're not my client. That's what I'm going to say to
Exactly.
everyone. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our past is the very best way to build our futures. LisaMarie Cabrelli, thank you so much.
Thank you, David. It was really fun.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.